This morning I'm standing about 150 meters off the shore of Colonia de Sacramento in Uruguay in South America. I'm about, 10 meters above the Rio de la Plata. And I'm standing here because I want to describe a little bit this land that you see behind me. About 3.5 kilometers that way and another 3.5 kilometers that way is a wide swath of land that very soon they'll be putting a smart city here. And so I want to describe a little bit of the background here and why they're putting it in Colonia. Well, Colonia is a historic city. This city was the first one to be established in all of Uruguay, and they've done a great job of preserving that old Spanish and Portuguese architecture. And because the city is so beautiful and we have some beautiful coastline, it's a popular tourist city. It's the favorite city to come for Uruguayans, and we have a lot of Argentines that come. There's a lot of people from the United States and Europe that often will visit Colonia. And it has a tranquilo culture, and so people love to come to Colonia. Well, we have about 35,000 people living in our city here, and they say that with the development of this smart city, that our size is going to be doubled. We're going to go from 35,000 to some 70,000 inhabitants. And so what's interesting is the person who owns this, again, it's about 7 kilometers along the coast, a couple of kilometers deep. It's an Argentine who owns it. But this man, Carlos Bastitta is his name. He's owned this land for about 35 years. And there's really nothing that's happened here. But he's dreamed for 35 years of putting some kind of modern or smart city, and he's not been able to. Well, he has a son, Eduardo, who is a land developer. And Eduardo is carrying forward his father's dream of putting a smart city here. Well, the smart city that they're planning on putting here, and groundbreaking is starting this year, and they say that as early as next year in 2023, the first inhabitants will be coming to live here. The smart city is going to be unique to all of Latin America, and in some senses it will be unique to the whole world. They want to pioneer the use of blockchain technology. Blockchain is the technology that's used for stuff like Bitcoin. Well, the blockchain here, they say, will be used for buying, it will be used for voting, and it will even be used for controlling your house. They want to use electric and self-driving cars. They want the fastest internet in the world, which will be 5G and Wi-Fi 6. At least that's the fastest right now. They're working to attract international businesses. They want this to be a hub for startups. They want to put schools here, a university. And one of the reasons they're doing this is because for quite a long time now, Uruguay has suffered from brain drain. Brain drain is when the young, talented Uruguayans will leave Uruguay because they feel there are better jobs, better opportunities, better pay outside of the country. So they'll leave for Europe, they'll leave for the United States, they'll leave for maybe Argentina. But they feel that right now, if they had a really attractive city, modern and technological city, that this would help prevent brain drain. One of the interesting things they're going to do with the smart city, though there will be a lot of high tech here, is they want to preserve 50% of all of the green spaces that you see. And so it promises to be a highly technological city, a pioneer type of city with a lot of beautiful natural space. I think projects like this are exciting, but I think that they can also be a little naive. In other words, just because the infrastructure is provided and a lot of money is thrown at a project, that doesn't mean that the city and its inhabitants will be prosperous or that they'll be happy. One thing I do know is that Mickey and I have prayed for years that the economy will improve here. We know that just through an improved economy, it doesn't mean that people will be spiritually well off. But we have seen how people often scrape to get by. A lot of people have very little to look forward to in terms of retirement. And so life can often be depressing for the people here. But when there is an economy developing, that often signals that God is doing something that is far more important than just the establishment of some kind of new city. And I want to read a verse that's found in Acts chapter 17, when the Apostle Paul was preaching to the Athenians. He explains something about migration patterns and development that sometimes we overlook. He says in Acts chapter 17, verses 26 through 27, it says, "And he has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on the face of the earth, and has determined their pre-appointed times and the boundaries of their dwellings, so that they should seek the Lord, in the hope that they might grope for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. And so the Apostle Paul is saying here that when there is a lot of development happening and there might be new migration patterns, it's because God wants to do something in the people's lives through the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so Mickey and I have been here now for about 8 years, and we certainly were not the first missionaries to come to Uruguay. When I think of what God might be doing, I think of what God has already been doing here in Uruguay and how he wants to continue. I think of how Brother Archie Perez and his wife Ruth came here 25 years ago, and how God has used them to help establish 5 churches in our department, not just the city, but the department of Colonia. I think of how we've seen God work as some of the seminary men and myself, and sometimes with other people of our church, we go out door to door talking to people about the gospel, whoever will listen to us. We call that program Toda Colonia. And we've handed out tracts now with QR codes. We circulate the videos on Facebook and YouTube throughout our city and even throughout our country. And we've seen some fruit from that. A few months ago when we started, I can tell by looking at the YouTube analytics that more than 100 people have clicked on a QR code to listen to the gospel. And so God is working. We're sowing that seed. And there have even been a few people who have visited our church as a direct result of us going out. Right now, we're working on an extension project in El Royale, in the church in El Royale. We've been able to install an updated kitchen, and Pastor Gabriel, with the help of Pastor Gustavo and Pastor Mario, have been working on extending the auditorium because that church has been growing there. I think about how the youth group is doing well under the leadership of David Gonzalez. And right now we're working on extending the church a little bit in the one in El General to better facilitate the youth group meetings and other special events that we have in that church. And one of the biggest things we're praying about right now, as I've talked about in past prayer letters and in some of our past videos, is the acquisition of a property that's adjacent to the church and seminary in El Royale. We've made an offer, and we've been able to make an offer because of your generous support and your generous offerings, and from the bottom of our heart we thank you for that. We're still waiting on whether it's yes or no. The owner has been very positive with us, and she's kind of given an indication that she will sell to us for our offer, but we're waiting for that formal okay from her property lawyer. And sometimes these things in Uruguay take time. And so we're waiting and we're praying, and we want to thank you for your prayers that God continues to do a mighty work here for these Uruguayans. And as we preach the gospel, that it reaches also into other regions for his glory. Thank you so much for your prayers.